All right, y'all. So we'll talk a minute this morning about software and software that I use, and I'm doing this on the heels of Chad over at Green Acres doing a video on his not having software. And I gotta say, with the amount of work that he does and not having software, it's pretty amazing that he's able to keep up with everything. But I know that it probably is, it's probably pretty time consuming. He's probably got it streamlined as streamlined as he can. But I did that for years, and when you don't use software, you don't really know the benefits of all the software. I mean, you think about, okay, what are the benefits of software? What are the benefits of software? The biggest thing that I think about when I'm thinking about software, and with pretty much anything with the business, when I buy equipment, trucks, trailers, even labor, is time. Saving time. How much time can I save? It's really, to me, what I really look at. It's all about my time and spending my time and how I want to spend my time. One thing that I will say is when I did not have software, right? And I was writing everything down, not to the extent of what Chad's doing, was I didn't have that many. I couldn't imagine 200 customers. Oh no. The amount of time that Chad, you can save with software, and the information that you can derive from the software is it's gonna free up a lot of time, a whole lot of time, once you get everything situated. Now, one good thing about not having software is you don't have to worry about software going down, right? Another good thing about not having software where you're writing everything down is you remember everything. I do. When I write stuff down, I remember it 10 times better than if I don't, right? But at this juncture, 18 years in, and Chad with, probably about the same amount or more than I got in, you already know, especially since he's been doing it by hand, you already are going to remember all the customers anyway. You're going to remember those no matter either way, because at this point you've been running it without software. So some of the critical things about software that have jumped out to me, and I've had software for a long time. I got software after about, once I hit about 50 or 60 customers, something like that, where I was doing 70 or so properties, I got software. Because I was tired of, I couldn't create an invoice without having to write everything down. I couldn't, I couldn't pull information out of the software, how much money I'm making, what it's costing me to do this, what it's costing me to do that, and all that. Though, in the beginning, the first 4 or 5 years, 6 years, 7 years before I got software, I did fine, but I didn't know what I didn't know, right? And that's what eventually happened with me. I didn't know that software was going to be such a handy thing to have, and what it ended up doing was saving me about an hour and a half a day, and that is when I had 60 or so customers, because I'd have to go in there every day and I would have to figure out everything. And and I know Chad's got a system down, and though that system may seem complicated to you and I, it's probably not as complicated to him, because he knows the system. He created the system, and but software software will make a big difference. So some of the benefits of software is, number one, it's going to keep everything it's going to keep everything on the calendar where I can see the whole month or the week or the 10 days, the next 10 days or whatever. You know, I usually keep mine on the monthly view. And then I can go into the weekly view. So every Sunday, I sit down on Sunday and I plot the whole week out. And I do all of that really fast because the software gives you options to where you can populate the day with whatever you did 2 weeks ago on that day. So there's a huge benefit, you know, and I don't have to keep saying that. Everybody that does software and everything is aware of that. But you gotta watch out on the kind of software that you get. I'll be honest with you, and I'm not paid of anybody. Software that I use, and I thought about changing because it's really kind of simple, but that's kind of simple works on my end too. The software that I use is Lawn Pro, and I'll put a link or something in the description, or right here, a picture of it or whatever. And I'll show y'all a little more of the hands-on when I get back to the shop. Now, one thing that I got to say before I go into this is I don't run my business off of my phone. Okay, the software has an app. I can go on the app and I can kind of look at things, you know, but me personally, I don't do well with this phone. And I know there are people going to come in and say, well, man, you can use blah, blah, blah. You know, they got a great app, and and I'm sure they do. But for me, with as many customers as I got, and with all the information that I need to get sometimes before I bid on jobs, if I was doing just strictly lawn maintenance, I still would want have it. I want to run my business on a desktop computer where I can see. I got a 36-inch freaking HD monitor that I can see everything on. And then if I can't see it on that, I got a TV I can project it on, you know, cast it to. So the only requirement for my software is you got to have an internet connection or a data, whatever. So if your internet goes out, then you're kind of limited on what you can do on the desktop, obviously, but you can still go on the app and do whatever you can do on the desktop on the app. It's just not comfortable for me. I don't like to do that. I can't see everything. I want to be able to plot things out right. So that's the first thing that I do, and I'm saying that's the right way, but there's a lot of little lawn apps and stuff that'll help you. But for a business like Chad's, that's that big, and that he does a lot of different stuff, you know, like you know, fertilizer and weed control and all that, pressure washing, and you know, I want to be sitting down in a place that I am not distracted. So that's kind of where I'm coming from when I start talking about software. I know there's software that I can get on my phone. I have a laptop, but the software is not on my laptop. I mean, I can go to the website just like I would on my desktop and go to my software, but it's not a app that you download onto my desktop. now the way I have it set up, when I hit the icon on my when I open up internet, you know, my Google Internet, then the icon is right there along with some of my other favorites, you know. And I just hit that, and it automatically opens up my software. I don't have to punch in no password or nothing, and bam, I'm on the software site. And with my on my dashboard of the software. Back to some of the tricky things that the software people do. Now, everybody, or not everybody, but a lot of people like Jobber, and Jobber's, you know, is a pretty in-depth software. For me, it's too in-depth. I don't, and I would imagine for Chad too, if he's used to doing everything by hand, Jobber's going to be, starting out, Jobber's going to be a little more complicated than probably what he wants to go through himself. Now, I've always of the mindset that I want to be able to run the software. So any software that I have, I want to be able to run it myself. I don't have to hire nobody to do it. So that's a big deal. Now, Chad probably, I can't speak for Chad, so I'm just saying what I would do. So Chad would probably be wanting to do the same thing. He's got to be able to do the software himself. And that's pretty easy once you get everything into the software. For my software, the hardest part to me, and this is what other software companies, well, this is what they do. And I'm going to tell you what they do. What they do is they get you to sign on, and they're cheap, right? It's, you know, I will say, I don't know. Well, I'll use Jobber, for instance, because I have some experience with Jobber, and they tried to get me to sign on. And they were even going to give me a discount because I'm a YouTuber, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't want to do it. And I'm going to tell you why. So what you got to watch out for is some of the features on the software. If you go to the bare basics of Jobber, they'll tell you this is what you get. This is what you can do for, we'll say, $50 a month. I don't even know. And which is nothing. $50 a month is nothing. So this is what you get. You get up to blah blah many customers. You get to blah blah this, and that, and the scheduling. It helps you with, you know, blah blah blah, right? Well, what they don't tell you is in that basic package. And I've done videos. If y'all go to my channel and y'all search my channel for Jobber and you know, not editing software, but you know, business software that I use or don't use, I explored Jobber, and this is what I found. So if you look at the fine print, or you ain't gotta look at that if you're me, a couple things, number one, number two, and number three things that a software's got to provide for me is it's got to provide, well, it's got to keep up with the amount of customers I have. It's got to keep up with what days I go to their house, site, whatever. So a calendar, it's got to do that, and that's basic stuff. But one thing that it's also got to do is it has got to keep up with my expenses. And what Jobber tried to do to me is they tried to sign me on for the $50, $60 a month plan, and then you go through all the trouble and the hassle of importing, getting all your customers into the new software. That's the hard part. And for Chad, that's going to be the long part, right? Because he's got to incorporate and implement and put all the customers in the software, or, you know, the software only knows what you tell it. So that's going to take a while for him to do that. But see, the software companies know that. So once they know you've went through all of that, and now you got your 200 customers or whatever in the software, and it was painstakingly getting all the, and you've purged some of the customers you're not using no more, and updated and blah blah blah. So you don't went through some crap to get all the customers into the software. Now they're in there. They're all nice and neat. They're alphabetically ordered, however you want to do it. They're perfect. But then when you go to start using the software, the basic software of Jobber, you can't put any expenses in. You got to go up to the next tier. Now you're at $110 a month. See? And they know that after you done went through, and this is what gets me, and I ain't mad at them, I'm just calling them out on it. They know that after you incorporate 200 customers and you done sat there at your computer, laptop, whatever, for a day or whatever, multiple hours, getting everything just right in the new software, but you're having to learn that, how to you know, add the properties. You don't just go in there and type their name, their phone number, and put their property in there. No, it's a bunch of stuff you got to go through in order for everything to fall. You gotta make sure they're not paying tax on the labor, and there's a lot of little things. So but once you go through all that and you got 200 in there and everything, you think you got it going on, and then you start trying to use it, and then you go to putting your expenses in, you can't. So that's a problem for me. And then even Jobber was going to give me a discount. I still saw that if I did that, they were going to have control over everything. So then you go to the next perk, which is the next plan up. Now you're at 170 or 180 or whatever. So, you know, basically, once you go through the day or so of getting all your information into the Jobber or some of the other softwares, that's when they drop the hammer on you and tell you, oh, you can't do this until you got to go to the next plan up. And they know before you quit Jobber and go to another software that you're probably going to do that, because you don't want to have to go through putting all the customers into a new software. That's what got me. I don't know if that gets everybody else, but that's what got me. I already had all my customers into my software, and I've added them one by one over the years, so we're good, right? Why in the hell would I want to go up to another software that's going to charge me more and not have the expenses? Why would I want to go to another software where I'm going to have to incorporate all the existing customers I got into the new software and pay more money for what I do? And I think for what Chad does at this moment and this time, then Jobber's just too, well, it's just too complicated and too expensive. And then once you go through that, next thing you know, you're paying $300 a month for software. And I'm not saying it's not worth that. I'm just saying that when you're coming from a place where you ain't spending nothing on software, to all of a sudden spending $300 a month on software, that's a pretty big expense. And you have to learn software, and you have to go through all of the stuff that you gotta learn. So that is the biggest thing on the software that I have learned. That's some of the critical things that I've learned with software. So now, if Chad got the same software I got, then I could help Chad, you know, with some of the little things to, you know, decrease the learning curve, because there is a learning curve. And but he's got a pretty integral thing that he's doing now. I will give you that, dude. I mean, that's a lot, man. And if you can release that, you know, and trust a software, that's what you should do. I mean, dude, it's I'm telling you, Chad, it's a no-brainer, man. And once you do it, you'll be like, oh, okay. But I told Chad I would do a little clip little video courses, and none of my, ain't no such thing as no little clip in my world. You know, there's so many benefits to the software, and I don't really see a lot of downside to having software. Now, if you have, you know, 30 or 40 customers, that is, for me, that's where you start looking at software, at least for me. And for Chad, it'll be the same way. He's got a lot more customers though than I do, twice as much, and he's not using software. I mean, dude, it's going to make such a difference in your life and the time that you can spend with your family and stuff, or the time you can spend making more money. And you're not going to have to remember everything like you do now, even though you write it down. And it's gonna take some some wherewithal to not write everything down, because you've been doing it like that for so long. I mean, you owe it to yourself to at least try software out. But the problem that I think that you're going to have with software is learning the software. That's the time-consuming thing. But if you get the same software I got, I can really help you get all the information into the end. And if you have any questions, I can answer all the basic stuff. Jobber's a lot more complicated than what people might think. And I would not start, if I'm in a service business like this, and I've been doing it by hand, I'm probably not going to start out with Jobber. Not saying that Jobber ain't worth it or is worth it. I'm going to start out with something a little bit cheaper, but that's not really the only thing, and a little bit less complicated. I don't need my software to do everything that Jobber software can do. I don't need that right now. I want to learn the basics of the software, and then I can incorporate the things that I want or I feel like the business needs. But if I'm coming from writing everything down at 200 customers, then any software is going to be a time saver. But to me, I have to have a location that I can run the business out of, as far as an office of some kind. Now, what I like about my software, and I'm sure it's like this with all of them, what I like about my software is I can go on here right now and I can, you know, look at it on my phone. But like I said, I don't like to do that. I mean, I don't mind looking at it, but I don't know, I just can't see it. I like to be able to see everything. I want to be able to see the whole week or month or whatever. But I will go in here sometimes when I'm on the job or whatever. I'll go in here and I'll say, okay, if we're, you know, say we're doing 15 lawns, and then this customer, two of the customers added, you know, something else on that day, be $50 more or whatever, right? I usually don't go on the phone and do that right there. I wait till I get home, and then I just put it in the software when I get home, because every day I invoice every day. Now, I'm not invoicing. There's a difference in invoicing the software and invoicing the customer. I don't invoice the customer every day or nothing like that. What I do is, since I am a get paid a time of service for most customers, especially the lawn maintenance, I never send them an invoice. Never. My software generates one, because you have to generate an invoice in the software, and so then I can go to my invoices, so I can be in the software. I come home, I click one box, and the all the yards that I did for that day are on there, right? And I've already, when I set the customer up, I've already put in there what I'm getting per lawn maintenance trip. So I don't have to add no numbers onto it unless I do something extra. Now, if I go up on the price, I just go into the customer settings for that customer, and I edit their default payment or their default work. And their default work would be just the lawn. So if I'm at a lawn at 60 and I want to go to 70, I got to go into the software and I just change it from 60 to 70 on the customer. And then when I come back out of the customer, save it, and then come back out, the next time I invoice that customer, it's going to automatically be 70 instead of 60. But what happens is each day I come home and I invoice it, and it's not sending an invoice to the customer. It's just creating an invoice in the system, in my software, and completion of work in the software, to where then I go to another tab, invoices, and I can see all the invoices that haven't been paid. And then I can click, I can go down through, I can click, okay, James, John, Judy, and Pooty, they all paid today, and just click one time on them, and then right click with the mouse, paid. And then you can even go into in depth how they paid you. Did they pay you with Zelle, Venmo, a check, a cash, or whatever? Now, a lot of times I don't get that specific with it because I don't have to. I just show that they paid. It's really more for me to keep up with the money and see how much money I have in the street at all times without having to do any. Now, everybody invoices a little bit different. I don't know how Chad invoices, but I don't invoice. I invoice my system at the end of each day. Now, I don't invoice everybody at the end of each day. What I do is there'll be an invoice in the system. Say Johnny, I'm going to Johnny's property, and Johnny, I go over there every 2 weeks, and Johnny pays every 2 weeks. And then Johnny don't make the payment at time of service. He went out of town or whatever. Well, that invoice in my system is open. So if I go back, when I go back to Johnny's again, and I invoice him again, that invoice just went from 70 to 140, right? And I haven't had to do anything. I haven't had to remember. Oh, does Johnny still owe me 70 from the last trip? Or did Judy Poo pay me? You know, I don't have to. I just keep going to the properties, and then I can glance at all the invoices at any time, and I can show how much money I actually have in the street at any given moment. And it gives you a nice picture of where you're at. And then what I really like about it, and you can do all this writing things down. It's just not as quick. Also, what I do, I can go on there with a click of just a few buttons, go in there, and I can look at, okay, where my finances were at this very moment last year. Where am I at? Did I make more money at this point in time last year than I did the year before or this year? Then that can kind of tell you, without having to go through a lot of rigmarole on how much more fuel you spent this year than you did last year. How much more business are you generating than you did this year or lack of last year? Or how much are you spending in labor this year versus last year? And then that can kind of tell you where you're at from, October to October. That's kind of, every October, November, I go in there and I look, okay, this is how much money I had in the bank account this time last year, and I did fine for the winter. So now I can go back and I can look, and you can do all that writing it down. I don't know how you would, but I mean, you could if you devoted enough time, energy, and effort to that. You can really critique the business a lot better. Now, I don't let the software generate. My software will generate the routing for me, but I don't let the software do that because my business is small in the grand scheme of things, And the software doesn't know all the intangibles that I know. So, especially when you're talking about, you know, dropping a tire off on the way to this job, so you want to start there first. So I've turned off the feature of it generating a route for me. And Chad probably would too, because he knows the best route, the best back roads to go and all that. The software is not really showing you all those things, which is cool. But if you grow, and my software will allow you to grow, you'll be able to, you know, add the second truck on, you know, and all that. And I do that too, but I haven't had a consistent guy in the second truck, so I just keep it all as one, because I haven't had a consistent guy that that has been worthy of me putting in the software and saying, okay, you know, this guy does these properties, and he's the default employee on these properties. I mean, there's so many little features that you can add to it as you're learning the software. Now, this video is getting a little bit long. It's really more intended for Chad, and if he can get anything out of this video, then it's worth the long video to me. And maybe I'll get in the shop today if I can ever get these stupid groceries, and show y'all some of the little things about the software. But I would definitely want to get a software, Chad, that someone that you know already has, that you can call. And I'm not saying it has to be the software that I use, but for me to help you, it would have to be, because a lot of the software gets confusing, and it can be time sucking. And I've went through all those pitfalls already, so I know which ones to avoid in the software that I use. Now, once you get the customers in the software, then you can export them into a Word document, a spreadsheet, or something like that, and then you have a copy of your customers and all their information somewhere. Now, for the specific software that I use, and I'm paying $40 a month, something like this. It's cheap, man, but it works really good for what I'm doing, and it's unlimited customers at the number I'm spending. And so you're not, you know, committed to a contract or anything, and it's not costing you an arm and a leg. Like I said, the biggest cost is getting the customers into the server and onto the database with their information and their address and their contact info and all that, because then it will automatically populate your calendar and all. And there's so many features that, like one feature that I really like is at the beginning of each season, I go through the customers, and I already know, and of course after you talk to the customers, I already know which ones are, you know, that I'm going to be all of mine are every 2 weeks. So I can go in there, and when I'm setting the first week up, the very first, you know, in April or whatever, the very first mow, then, and I know that from that point on, it's every 2 weeks after that. Then what I do is when I set that, we'll say every other Monday. We'll just use that for an example. I'm going to be at these 9 properties. So when I set it up at the beginning of the season, I just set it up, okay, every 2 weeks all the way until November the 10th, and that'll be the last mow for this customer. You can set it up to where now you're going to Johnny's house every other Monday, every 2 weeks. And when you open up your software, you're looking at the calendar, and there's going to be Johnny every 2 weeks, and Sally, and whichever ones that you click that you every 2 weeks. And then if it rains on that Monday, then what you can do is you can go to your looking at your calendar, and you can just move it to Tuesday, and then you got all these options. You can just move around on the weekly that it's rained, or that you get behind in the summertime. Sometimes I get behind, and then I can see everything. I can move it around, and I can, you know, if it rains on Monday, or rain half a day on Monday, and I didn't get to the last 3, then I can move those last 3 over to Tuesday, if that makes sense, according to where I'm at on Tuesday. Now, I may have to move them to Wednesday, because I'll be closer to that route on Wednesday. They don't automatically just go to Tuesday, because Tuesday I might be way over here somewhere, and I'm not going to be over here when I got to be way over there. So I'll have to move them to Wednesday when I'm closer to that route. And you can do that just by grabbing it and moving it on your calendar, and you can see everything. But that's what I like about the software. It gives you so many options, and it saves a lot of time. And there's backups and all this stuff too. So once you do software, the only thing that you'll hate about the software is that you didn't do it sooner. If you're you know, got 200 customers, I mean, dude, that can get a little bit complicated, even if you do have a system. But of course, to me, it's gonna, and to anybody watching that video chat, it's gonna be super complicated to them, because you're like me, you got one customer at a time. And so you built it slowly but surely. So you know every customer, no matter how many there are, because I got them one at a time. And there's a story behind how I got each customer. There's a story behind that, you know, and I always seem to remember that. But I don't want to have to remember all that. I don't want to have to write down anything. I want the software to keep up with it, so I can focus on other things. And that's been, you know, software is going to make you more efficient at the end of the day. It's going to save time at the end of the day. And to me, that's what I'm all about out here, is efficient. Just as, you know, I know Chad is efficient on the lawns and everything that he does. It just, you know, just as he looks at that, and I look at the efficiency on the job, you know, the routing density, the equipment that you buy, the labor, and how to make the most money in the minimal time. The software is just, I look at it the same exact way. The scheduling, the invoicing, the getting paid, and all that. I need something to keep up with my money. And things I write down sometimes, though it is a little bit easier now with text messaging and all, because of you know, and I do invoice some people, like on the bigger skid steer jobs and stuff. I do invoice them, and I'll send, if I don't have an email, I'll text them a picture of the invoice. But usually that's for the customers that are spending a few $1,000s, so they can write it off on their homeowners or whatever, on their taxes or whatever. So, and they can prove that they spent $3,000 on getting this tree removed. And so then at the end of the year, they can write it off. But for the regular lawn maintenance stuff, I don't give the customer an invoice. Now, if they ask for one, I will. And my software will automatically, well, if you tell it to, it'll text the customer the invoice. So that's a cool little feature too. But again, I don't know all the features, but I know the basics of how to. And I've had this software. Well, I had their first version back around 2012 or 13. I ran it for about 3 or 4 years. And then around 2018 or so, they updated, and so I got the updated version. Well, why did I do that? Why did I not go to other software? Because I didn't want to have to learn another software. I didn't want to have to incorporate all my customers into another software. That's a big stickler for me. I don't know if it's everybody's like that, but I don't want to have to spend my time learning another software. So once you learn a software, you'll probably tend to stick with it as long as it's not super confusing, and as long as it does everything you want it to do, and as long as it's not costing you a fortune, and as long as it's not telling me, no, I can't do this and no, I can't do that, before I update the features or whatever. So that's my little rant on software, y'all.